to tell you a little bit about Tynecia Wilson. So on January 28th, 2024, Tynecia Wilson was crowned Miss Philadelphia. Tynecia won the 2024 Kevin John McAuliffe Interview Award for the Miss Philadelphia organization and the 2024 York Water Company non-finalist interview award from the Miss Philadelphia organization. She is a graduate of Temple University, holding 2 degrees along with a graduate certificate in public relations. Tynecia coordinates service learning and leadership programs at Temple University, such as the annual Inclusive Leadership Conference and as the annual and the Service Immersion Program. Miss Philadelphia continues her advocacy while focusing on her recently launched brand, The Healthy, Wealthy Friend, empowering others to become the healthiest and wealthiest version of themselves. With hopes to continue her education in the future, Tynecia is a proponent of lifelong learning and encourages others to never stop investing in their education. Please help me to welcome Tynecia Wilson.
Thank you, everyone. So I am so happy to be speaking with you all today on something that is really near and dear to my heart, right? Interviewing and networking. And so, as your professor just shared, so I did win 2 awards for my interviewing ability, 1 from the Miss Philadelphia organization, and then 2 from the Miss Pennsylvania organization, which essentially results in whoever receives the highest score in interviewing. And so that is why I like to say I'm qualified to talk about interviewing and why it's important to even be able to be someone who can interview and also network in different spaces. And so my degrees, I have a degree in Spanish literature and linguistics, as well as advocacy and organizational development. And I've recently received a graduate certificate in public relations. I run all the leadership and service programs here on Temple's campus. And then I'm also an entrepreneur. So very much a layered individual in content creation, cosmetology, holistic health, as well as being a fitness ambassador. And so what I like to do whenever I do any type of presentation is I like to get a sense of what's going on in the room and how you all are feeling. So we're going to do a quick Menti, and this is my first time doing this. And so I think you all should be able to scan this QR code, and it will take us over. So let me know once everyone's scanned, and I will go over to our mentee. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up now. All right. Awesome. All right. So you can also just go to menti.com and use the code if you did get a chance to scan that QR code. I'm going to go ahead and close some of these tabs here. Cool. All right. So we're starting with what gets you excited about interviews? Getting to know what kind of placing people to work with. I love that. Talking about myself. Who doesn't like that? Getting to know the interviewer as well. Understand how they tick, very good. Meeting new people, new opportunities, new growth and possibilities. I'll give everyone just another minute. Awesome. So I think we're in a good, let's see down here. Oh, we got some more coming in. Find interviews to be a good opportunity to figure out what is the best way to present and market myself. I like that. Having open dialogue. I like to be able to express myself and my expectations. Good. Interviews tend to be a bit more nerve-wracking than exciting for me. Okay, very honest. It's nice to get to know who I'm working for. making the interviewer talk about themselves, learning more about the position. Great. All right, cool. Let's go on to the next question here. So this one, you're gonna rank it. So how do you feel about your interview skills? Oh, we got a little typo there. So you got, I think I'm a great interviewer. I'm okay with interviewing. I get so nervous for interviews, but I can get through it. And then please just give me the job. I can't do this interview thing. All right. Got an interesting mix here. I'll give everyone another minute. All right, so it looks like we've got some nerves surrounding interviews, which is okay. And the reason why we're here, so I'm going to go back to our presentation now. All right, so today, like I said, we're going to talk about interviewing, but we're also going to be talking about networking. So this will be a focus on both online as well as interview, as well as in-person interviews. And so the first thing I want to go over is just some of the top reasons why college students or even just people in general might be really nervous about going to an interview or just being a part of interviews. And so the first thing would be having limited experience. And you all can, sorry, I can hear you all. Limited
Hi,
experience.
sorry to interrupt here. If you are currently on Zoom, please mute your mic.
Thank you. So we've got limited experience, right? So a lot of students will feel like they have a lack of work experience or just like specific skills when it comes to interviewing for a job. And I think that many of you all might be able to relate to this point because sometimes it can be true, right? As a new college student, maybe you didn't get a chance to have those internships. Maybe you didn't have a part-time job, or maybe you just didn't have those opportunities while you were in school to be able to make you feel like you have some type of experience that will make you an asset to an organization. The next thing is uncertainty about a career, a specific career goal. So a lot of students, much like yourselves, are trying to figure out what you want to do long term. So it can really make it challenging, especially when you get asked those questions like, oh, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? Quick raise of hands if anyone has done an interview and they've gotten that question before. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 3 years or anything of the sort? Okay. I definitely I get that all the time. And maybe it's not even just in interviews, but maybe it's just when you're meeting someone new or when you're just chatting with someone. That's also something that can come up. The fear of making a bad impression, right? We always hear all the time our first impressions, our lasting impressions. And so a lot of times we get that anxiety of going into spaces that we're going to make a bad impression on the people that we're meeting with or our interviewer. The next thing is intimidation by authority figures, right? And so a lot of times when we're meeting new professionals who are maybe more experienced than us, more knowledgeable than us, we start to feel a bit overwhelmed or feel like we don't belong inside of this space. And the last thing is just performance anxiety, right? The need to perform, right? And utilizing this word performance or thinking that when you go inside of an interview, it's a performance of some sort. And so these are some of the reasons why college students, or again, just people in general who are interviewing, might be a bit nervous about the thing that they're about to face. And so hopefully after this presentation, then you all will feel a little less nervous about interviews. And I also want to share, this is also in another slide, but the same feelings that make us feel nervous are the same things that make us feel excited, which is why I framed our first question around what makes you excited about it. Because a lot of times if we just go into our interviews with a different mindset, oh, do I feel nervous or am I excited about this opportunity to be able to tell someone about who I am? Am I excited to learn more about this person who's interviewing me or more about the job? So a lot of times it's a perspective shift that can really change a lot for us when we're going into interviews. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the different types of interviews, right? And so we've had 6 different types of interviews that we can be a part of. Sometimes they overlap with one another, they happen concurrently, but it can really be helpful when you know what type of interview you're about to enter or what types of questions you're being asked, because that can also really help you with answering them and just feeling more comfortable. And so we're going to go in and do a deep dive into the 6. And if you have the opportunity to take some notes, because we're going to do a small game on these types of interviews. So the first one is behavioral interviews. And a lot of times in a behavioral interview, they'll start with, tell me about a time, right? So they're looking to see how you acted in a situation that you were already in, okay? So some of the questions could be, tell me about a time you had a conflict with someone, or tell me about a time you worked on a challenging team project, right? And so these are all ways they want to see the behaviors that you already possess and how you were able to handle certain things that you've already faced. The next one is case interviews. So these are going to be ones that are extremely hypothetical, something that you may not have tackled before, especially as you all as college students. These are probably things that you have not faced before. And so examples of this would be, okay, profits are down in this particular industry or for our particular company. What will your next step be? And so again, they want to see how you're going to act inside of these situations that may not be high stress, but things that can absolutely come up if you are given a specific role. And so they want to know what your approaches will be, what your theories are, what tactics you'll use that you haven't got the opportunity to use before, or maybe you did. So they could be looking for those transferable skills. And this is something that you can mention inside of a case interview or a question that is case-based. So we've got behavioral, we've got case. The next one is informational interviews. Have we heard of these type of interviews before? I'm trying to like see you all inside of the Zoom room. So in these type of interviews, you are the interviewer. And a lot of times we may have heard of these things, but we don't do them often. And I can say that they are extremely beneficial. One, because it helps with networking, right? Which is something that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But you're actually able to find out more about the role that you want to be in, as well as just the employer in general. So you can talk about the company when you're interviewing this particular employee. You can interview other people that have the job that you might want. And maybe it's not just about the organization that you want to be a part of or the company you want to work for, but just someone in general who has a role that you can imagine yourself being in. And these are usually like 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes they're 15 or even shorter. And something that you can ask like for someone to do on their lunch break, right? Very low stakes, not too much investment from the person who you're going to be asking questions to. But it can be really helpful. Even as someone who might be preparing to be a part of an interview, as someone who's being interviewed, to be an interviewer, right? So that will kind of ease your nerves because, you know, you're the one coming up with the questions. You're the one that could be able to guide the interview, right? So as you go through this process of being a part of interviews and being interviewed, it definitely will ease your mind knowing that at some point in time, you were on the other side of the table. And a lot of times in these interviews, they suggest that you don't outright ask for a job. Like, oh, well, are you all hiring right now? Right? You want to make sure that you keep to the mission of what this ask was for, right? So if you ask someone, hey, I would love to do an informational interview with you to learn more about your company, learn more about your role, because it's something that I'm interested in. You don't usually take this time to ask them for a job. You want to use this time to create connections. You want to utilize this time to get as much information as possible. And then maybe when you follow up, hey, I loved our conversation. I love the things that you do. And I really like the company you work for. Do you know if there's any opportunities or if they have any open positions for recent graduates or entry-level positions or something that you might be interested in? But the main focus of these types of interviews is for you to get to know the person that you have requested an interview with. The next one is screening interviews. And so in screening interviews, these are usually conducted by HR, and they're rather simple, right? They're looking at the job description for the job that you applied for, and they're trying to match and see if you align with those things. Now, nowadays, they have a lot of artificial intelligence that are doing these things for us, right? So they'll have your interview submitted, they will cross-reference it with some type of online software. So they don't even have to ask you these questions anymore. They're looking right at your resume, or they're looking at your cover letter, which is now more important now than ever, that you are making sure that you are also utilizing the resources that you have in your career center, and also the professionals that are helping you all when it comes to formulating your resume or your cover letters around a role that you are looking for. But in a case when you are working, let's say, with a smaller company or a company that still utilizes HR to do these types of interviews, they're very straightforward. The next type of interviews would be selection, right? So now these ones are a bit more personal, and they would be conducted by usually the person that's going to be overseeing you in this particular role. So they could be a mix of those things that you've done previously in the past, or they could be a mix of those hypothetical situations, right? Or they could be asking about your philosophy, right? So this could be your leadership philosophy, your life philosophy, the ways that you just go about your day-to-day living, whether that is in your personal life or inside of your professional life, and how those two things overlap. And so when going into these types of interviews, and you can tell with, or you can also ask, like, who the person is that will be conducting. You can do that type of research. You see the person who's going to be interviewing you. You can see their title. You can figure out, okay, this will be the person who will be overseeing me directly. So come with those questions, right? And also try to come with things that will make you memorable. Try to be creative with the stories that you're telling, with the skills that you are bringing forward. And so inside of these selection interviews, it's important that you know the things that is going to make you stand apart. Because especially if you're getting to this particular interview, and this could be your second interview, or maybe even sometimes your third interview, you've passed all those other things, right? Maybe you've done an informational interview with some networks at this company. Maybe you've gone past that interview of the case-based scenarios, and now they really want to see, what is your team fit? Will you fit on this team? Will you be able to work directly with your supervisor? This is where they're getting. So now more than ever is when it's time for you to really show your personality. And then the last type of interview is a stress interview. So they like to call this type of interview a test of character, right? Or your true character. And so you're going to be getting asked maybe some type of contradictory questions, or questions that might create an atmosphere that could be a bit uncomfortable if someone was to ask you this question just in everyday life, right? So maybe they're asking, why did you leave your previous role? Or they're asking if someone was caught lying, or if someone admitted to you that they were lying, what would you do in that situation? And so they're really trying to test your character inside of these types of interviews. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to do a quick interview game. So I'm going to show you all some questions, and this could be for you all there in the Zoom room, and then also you all in the physical space. I'm going to show you a question, and then you can talk amongst yourselves about which type of interview you think this would be. So the first question is, tell me about a time you overcame a problem. So what kind of interview do we think this would be a part of? Now, remember, we have behavioral, we've got case interview, we have informational interview, a screening interview, a selection interview, and then a stress interview. So everyone in the Zoom room, feel free to drop it in the chat, and then maybe we can come to a consensus inside of the in-person room.
If you're in person, you can let me know.
Time is flying. All right, any guesses? What kind of interview do we think this would be? Did you say behavioral?
Yes.
All right, we got a guess for behavioral. Kaylee says behavioral. Any other guesses? All right. You all are right. It is a behavioral interview. So again, we have that tell me about a time, right? Something that has already happened to you, something that you should be able to recount on. Um, and again, looking at those behaviors that you already have and how that would probably influence you inside of the role that you will be able to receive. The next one, what skills and qualities do you think help you do your current job? What skills or qualities do you think help you do your current job?
And can you list the types of interviews again?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Can you list the titles of each interview type?
Yes, I can. So it was tell me, or what skills and qualities do you think help you do your current job?
Bringing the back over to someone in the room. Screening?
You think it's screening?
Yeah, that was screening for someone in the room. Anyone else in the room?
Okay, anyone else want to take a guess? What skills and qualities do you think help you do your current job?
No other guesses in a row.
Okay, so this one is actually a informational interview. So this might be a question that you're asking when you are interviewing someone else about their current role, right? Or the job that they have. And why would we want to ask about skills and qualities for a specific job? Because if we want that job, we want to know, okay, do I have those skills? Do I have those qualities if I was the person inside of that role? Or this can also help you figure out what skills and qualities you need to attain before you apply for a job, right? Because that's what informational interviews are about. Maybe you didn't apply for the role already. Maybe you just saw a specific job that you would like, a specific role that you would like to have, or a company you want to work for. You didn't apply for it yet. It's very low stakes. You just want to get some information. And so knowing this, right? Knowing the skills and the qualities that would make someone successful in a specific role, and you taking the intentional time to build those skills inside of yourself, what makes you all the more better a candidate when it does come to apply for a specific role. All right, we're gonna do one more. What would you do if you caught your supervisor stealing? I'll pull up the list.
And you got 2 hands here in front of you. Okay, then back one, and then back it together. So you're going to right, and she's still my answer. So we have 2 in the room for stress.
2 in the room for stress.
Yes, we have 3 in the room for stress.
3 in the room for stress.
Yeah, it looks like the room is agreeing on.
The room is agreeing that this is a stressful question, and you all are right. It would be a part of a stress interview, right? We are getting those very contradictory questions. You're not sure. You're like, okay, if I'm getting interviewed by my supervisor right now, how do I go about answering this question? If I caught you stealing, what would I do, right? And so they're trying to see your integrity. They're trying to see where your loyalty will be, or what kind of employee are you going to be when it comes to the company and when it comes to who you're going to be to your supervisor, right? And so these are some types of questions that you might get asked. And the reason why I outline these different types of interviews and the different types of questions, again, is to give yourself some foundation, right? When you go inside of these interviews, a bit more confidence. As you hear a question, you're like, oh, I know what type of question this is. And then you can kind of formulate your answer to the type of question it is. Again, that tell me about a time. They are looking for an anecdote. They are looking for a narrative. They're looking for an example of something you've already done, right? In a stress interview, they're looking for okay, how do you handle these types of situations that could be stressful, right? They're looking for your body language. They're looking for how you answer the question. Are you stressed out in this moment? Do you know how to navigate this type of space, even if we're just asking you hypothetically? They want to get a sense of how you would navigate in that situation if it was to happen in real life. So those are the 6 types of interviews. And I don't know how time is flying in this manner. Like we are getting down to the last few minutes. So I'm actually gonna show you all this was a video that I created about how to do well for interviews, both online and in person. And so I'm gonna skip past this part of the video and just get straight into the written portion. So for addressing the part. So you want to make sure that you are addressed the part regardless if it's in person or if it's online, right? Perception is key. And you have to be able to kind of play to this idea of, when you look your best, you feel your best. There is a psychological association to people when it comes to how you look, right? So you want to make sure that when you go into different spaces, and this is something that's been coming up a lot recently, is that as we transition fully out of a COVID space or fully out of an online space and moving into either a hybrid format or people are coming back in person, we have to remember these types of these norms when it comes to how we dress to when we're going to an interview. And so here are some examples of things as a man or as a woman, or things that you would like to wear. You can wear a pantsuit or a dress. You want to have very minimal jewelry, nothing that is too distracting from the things that you're going to say. The next part is being familiar with the software. So this is specifically for online interviews again, and these are something that you all might be a part of, especially if you're applying for jobs that are out of state, or if you are applying for jobs that has companies that just continue with the online Zoom or online format. And so some of the things that people are using are usually Zoom, like what we're on now. Teams is another thing that people have been using. WebEx is something that used to be very popular. And there are a plethora of online platforms that people use to conduct interviews. So when you are doing an interview, one, you want to make sure if it's online or in person. And I'll share a quick anecdote. I had someone very close to me who thought an interview was virtual, but it was actually in person. So do not be afraid to ask those questions if the interview is online or if it's in person, okay? So familiarize yourself with the platform. If it's online, if it's something that's in person, make sure you're looking up the actual location of the place. Try to do some research and see, or ask those questions. Oh, will I need to bring ID? Will I need to be meeting someone? Like if they're not telling you that information, make sure and ask those specific questions so that when you get into a specific place, there's nothing that is going to be confusing. Or if it is, give yourself that extra time to be able to get there. And again, for online interviews, try to do some mock interviewing, right? Whether that is asking someone to be on Zoom with you, even if you're talking to yourself on Zoom, to get familiar with the online space or familiar with just talking to a camera, try to do that before your interview.
I will say that for the interviews, when we talk about dress, I came up with a term for us here at York, because we are an art and design community. So we may show up a little bit different in our how we express ourselves with our clothing and jewelry to an interview, which is a little bit more acceptable depending upon the job position or company that they are pursuing. So I came up with this term called creative professional.
Okay.
Creative professional. And I think one of the big things that I tell the students too is research the company's culture.
Mm-hmm.
And take a look online and see if you can get a sense of the dress code. You can never go wrong. The Tynecia, I love that you put pantsuit or dress, depending upon your preference, you can never go wrong.
Right.
But if you're going out for a position and you're going to a tattoo studio, right, then you may feel more comfortable in jeans, a button-up shirt and blazer, right? Or, creative professional, Right, switch it up a little bit. So
I like that. I
I
love creative professional. That sounds so dope, right? And even if someone's like, "Oh, I love how you dress." Oh, yes, I am a creative professional, right? That gives you that added layer to setting yourself apart, making yourself unique and making yourself memorable. So I really like that. Um, all right. So I want to skip ahead a bit. I'm going to give y'all just a few tips on some questions that if you get asked, and then I want to hop over into just using our last few minutes on networking. Um, and so we have tell me a weakness, right? This is something that we get asked a lot of times. And so I like to use a three-step process. You want to be honest, right? Think about what your actual weakness is. Yeah, they never want to hear I don't have a weakness because we all have them. You don't want to throw away your entire interview, right? So don't say something like, "Oh, my weakness is I'm always late to work and I'm not gonna get any better at it. And hopefully the job I'm at will be lenient with me," right? You don't want to do something like that. And I am confident that you all will not do something like that. But then, as always, to round it off, you want to show how you are transforming that weakness. And so if I was asked this question, a lot of times I will say, a weakness of mine is that I could be a little impatient, right? Because I love to get things started, I love to get things moving, and I love to use my problem solving to be able to work through any problems that might arise. And I'm working on this by continuing to challenge myself to work on teams with people who might need to talk a bit more, who might need to deliberate a bit more. And so I can practice utilizing my patience inside of that way, right? And so there it goes. I told you what my weakness is. People all the time lack patience, right? But it's something that I know I'm working on and something that I value because I know it's something that's important when you're working on a team. And the last example I will give you all for a way that you could possibly answer a question: what is a problem or an achievement that you overcame or accomplished, right? So a problem that you overcame or an achievement that you accomplished. What kind of interview question would this be? Or what kind of interview would this be a part of? We have tell me about a time when you overcame a problem. Do we remember? Behavioral. It is, yes. Amazing. It is behavioral. Love that. So whenever you get asked a behavioral question, and it's something that you may or may not have seen before, but there's something called the STAR method, right? And so it's STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. And this gives you a very easy and neat format on how you can answer a specific question when it comes to something like this, right? So the first thing you want to talk about is a situation, right? What was the situation that you were in? What was the situation that was a part of or something that arose? Then you're going to talk about the task. What was the actual to do? The next thing is the action. What was the steps that you took? And then the last one is the results. So they want to know what happened, right? The numbers, what feedback did you get? What effect did you have on the people around you or on the environment? And as you hit all of these things, you're talking about a lot here, right? You're telling them about a situation that you were a part of. You're telling that you're able to problem solve or that you're able to organize things in a specific way when it comes to a process or organizing your task or prioritizing what needs to be done first. You're showing them, okay, I don't just know how to put things in place, but I also know how to do the things, right? I can think about and strategize on all the things that would be important to do, and I can also put that in action. And then obviously people don't want to just hear about the talk. They want to know about, okay, well, what happened? What came of it? And so those are the two examples I'll give you. Like I said, in these last few minutes, I want to skip ahead. And I know that we've had a bit of concerns when it comes to networking and being able to network with people because networking is extremely important. I want to know really quickly from you all, why is networking important? Would love to hear from you all. Why is networking important? I'm gonna stop my share for a second so I can hear.
Networking is important because it gives you the opportunity to get to know people. And when you become friends with those people, they'll help you out. So I know teachers in New York who work in, let's say Disney, for example, like, oh, there's an opportunity. You want to take it? I'm like, sure.
For sure.
Thank you, friends. is helpful in that area.
I love that. Absolutely. There's a lot of places and they'll say like, you want to be friends with people that will put you in rooms even if you're not there, right? And you're like, what does that mean? I'm not in that room. How can I be there? But they're saying your name. They're thinking about you. They're keeping you in mind when it comes to different opportunities that might be really great for you. And these aren't just with friends, right? People that you might hang out with all the time, but it could be your acquaintances. It could be just people that you know who know you're good at a specific thing or know you want to do a specific thing. So amazing. I want to go here and just wrap off with networking for introverts, or maybe you aren't specifically an introvert, but you might consider yourself as someone who might be afraid to network, or when it comes to going into spaces with people you don't know, what do you do? A lot of times as college students, you're here like, oh, network, network, network. But hey, it's hard for me to go into a space and just talk to people, or it's hard for me to go up to someone and just have a conversation with a stranger. And so here are some tips that I have for you all who might consider yourself as an introvert or might be just a bit afraid when it comes to being inside of networking spaces. And so the first thing is that there are more introverted or shy people than you think, right? So I've been, fortunate enough to be in spaces with maybe some of your favorite YouTubers or some brand ambassadors or just influencers in the past few weeks, honestly. And honestly, these people that are so bubbly and outgoing online, they're actually super shy in person. And I've come across a few people and I was shocked by how they act when I met them. And I'm like, oh, I just see you online and you're so like, I wouldn't think that you would be like that. So don't feel like you're the only person that is shy to have conversations, or you feel like, oh, I'm introverted, I can't, put myself out there, because a lot of people are actually like that, more people than you think. The next thing is utilize social media, right? So there are a lot of networking events that happen strictly online. And I've gone to a few networking events where we didn't even talk, like you just typed, right? It was like speed networking and you just talked about who you were, where you went to school or where you work or the things that you want to do. And so these are another ways that you can network with people. I want to imagine that you all have a LinkedIn, you all might be on Instagram or Facebook or Clubhouse or all those different types of online networking tools. And so I encourage you all to look up some of those tools or look up some of those online platforms that can help you network with other people. The next thing, and one of the things that has helped me a lot, is setting reasonable expectations. And so if you tell yourself, okay, I am going to this event, right? You are spending your time, maybe you're spending your money on Uber or public transportation. You're spending your energy to go to this place. Maybe you got to get dressed up, and look nice. You need to get something out of it, right? So that's what you need to tell yourself. I'm going to this event and I need to get something out of it. So set a realistic goal. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to talk to one person and I'm going to get one business card. Or I'm going to go in here, I'm going to talk with two people and I'm going to try to get 3 business cards, right? So set a goal. Before you leave, before you go to the event, set a goal. I know what I'm going in here for. And that kind of takes that stress off you just a bit. The last 3 things is prepare some questions, right? So when you go into a space, know what you're going to ask people and try to have questions that can be used across for different people, especially as conversation starters. What are you doing here? Do you go to networking events often? What do you like to do? What are your hobbies, right? Asking people those types of questions becomes it gets to become very personal. And then they're more likely to remember you, right? Because you're not just talking about all the business things, right? You want to know who they are as a person. Listen more and talking less. We have 2 ears because we are supposed to listen twice as more than we talk. So definitely when you're asking those questions, listen, be attentive, be present. People love being able to talk about the things that they're doing. So be the person that can receive that information. And then the last thing is ask to be introduced. So as you are utilizing these networking tips, utilize your network, right? Ask people, hey, do you know someone that does this thing? Do you know someone that works at this company? Do you know someone that can help me in thinking about this philosophy or helping me with this problem, right? Ask to be introduced. And so yeah, take all of these things, right? And these can be very helpful, especially as someone who's new to entering inside a networking space or someone who wants to branch into this space. One tip here of setting reasonable expectations, I want to emphasize a lot because, like I said, it has helped me in being someone who has to go to a lot of networking spaces and network with a lot of people. Um, and it just really helps ease those nerves. And so that is what I have to share with you all in terms of interviewing as well as networking. Being prepared can really help you when it comes to if you're really nervous inside of this space. So knowing the types of interviews that you are going into, understanding the types of questions that you are being asked, or even when you're networking, setting those realistic expectations for yourself. Um, and so that is what I have to share. I know we're here until 12:15, right? So I don't know if anyone has to run out, but I am open to getting questions if you all have any specifically from the things that I shared, or just some other things that you would like to know.
Does anyone have any questions at this time for us? Yeah.
So y'all can ask me about um, being a college student. I work at Temple University now. You can ask me about being Miss Philadelphia or interviewing or networking or anything you would like to ask.
Oh, there's a question. We have a question.
And please let me know your name as well.
My name is Karima, and my question are getting a job after college and the big transition from being in school for 16 years to adulthood.
Yeah. That's a great question. Was it hard? It actually wasn't. And the reason why it wasn't hard was because I networked. So my job that I'm in now, I was a very active student here on Temple's campus. And so funny enough, my role, I plan a lot of the things that students do. So a lot of the events for our students. My main role, I plan a conference here. And when I was a student, I was a student host for this same conference. And so I was able to utilize my network. I was able to utilize all the opportunities that I had in college to be able to segue inside of this role. And it also wasn't hard because I knew the things that I was passionate about and I knew what I wanted to do. So I also lead, like I said, the service program here. And I did a lot of community service work as a student. And so all of those things kind of just bled into what I do now. And so it wasn't hard, again, because I utilized my network and I knew what I wanted to do. So I encourage you all to continue to think about the things that actually makes you really happy. Lean into those opportunities that are on your campus to really get that experience to show when you are applying for interviews or when you are applying for jobs that you have that experience, maybe not in a professional capacity, but you've done those things inside of your roles or your leadership roles as a student. Yes, your question?
We have one more question, but before you ask the question, I'm going to provide everyone, because it is 20 minutes after the hour, with the opportunity, if you need to go right now, that this is an okay time to do so. But before you do, two things: make sure that you scan the QR code on one of the tables so that you can sign in. That's very important. Make sure that you scan the QR code. And the second thing I'm going to ask you to do is just help me thank Tynecia Wilson so much for being here today and for sharing with me tips on how to get you and network life abroad. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay.
There's a question here there's a question here in the Zoom, and then I'll grab the question in person. So, do you have any advice for an interview where I'm asked to record video responses instead of talking to the interviewer? I will say, so this is more so for those screening purposes, right? So they might also be asking you those behavioral questions, but whatever it is, they usually give you a few tries. So the first thing I would say is understand the question that's being asked, right? Because they'll also give you a time limit more often than not. So you don't want to babble on or just say a lot of fluff. Like you want to know the exact question, figure out what kind of question it is, and then the method that you need to use. So for example, if it's a behavioral question, utilize the STAR method. On that like on the other side of, okay, we got that, we understand what the question is, we understand how we want our answer to be, make sure your lighting is good. I can say when I interviewed for this role, I interviewed from home. I make sure I had great lighting. I make sure that I had on an interview outfit, even though you are at home or whatever, wherever you are doing this video, make sure it looks presentable, right? Because that will also make people, oh, okay, whatever she said, but I love the lighting, I love the outfit, I love the response as well. Like I said, interviewing and talking to people is all psychological, and there's many things that you can have that will play in your favor, utilize it. So like I said, I would definitely understand the question and figure out what they're trying to ask. Like, what are they trying to get out of you? Do they want to see if you have transferable skills? Do they want to see if you were in a situation beforehand? Do they want to know how you would act in a certain situation? And then kind of utilize all of those other things that would also help you when it comes to having a video response. Because imagine they're going to have that forever. And whoever is going to see it, you want to make sure that it looks presentable. Great question, Kaylee.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see our. My question is, what has it been like navigating what I'm assuming to be predominantly white spaces as a Black woman in networking?
Did you say how to navigate white spaces as a Black woman?
Like predominantly white spaces as a Black woman, you know. Like,
I guess the first question is, and we know that this is something that is talked about very often as someone who might have minority identities or even marginalized identities that many of us possess. The first thing I would say is, what is making you nervous, right? Figure that out. Why would you be nervous to be in a space where people don't look like you? So answer that question for yourself and really dive deep into what would make you feel uncomfortable about being in that space. That's the first thing. The second thing is try to find those other reasons inside of a particular community or organization or just in an industry that would make you feel comfortable, right? So let's say, for example, you are going into tech, right? That might be very heavily predominantly male, predominantly white male based. Think about those other things that make you comfortable. Oh, I love tech because of this thing, not because I might go into a space where there's people that look like me or people that I can be in community with because we have similar identities. Find those other things that make you comfortable. Oh, I love tech because I really like problem solving. I love tech because this is something that I've done since I was a child or something that has become a recent passion of mine, right? So find those other things that make you feel grounded or make you feel excited about a particular role. Because a lot of people will go into spaces because there are people that look like them, and that's what gets them excited, right? So find those other things because you may not have that. And then the last thing is to continue to know what your strengths are inside of that space, because that will give you more reason to feel like you belong, right? A lot of times we need those tactics and those things that will help us inside of spaces where we don't see people that look like us, and you start to think, oh, do I belong here? Is this something that I should actually be doing? So have those list of reasons, whether you have to write it down, like, oh, I deserve to be here because I've studied this. I deserve to be here because I've passed this course. I deserve to be here because this is just what I want to do. So I want to be inside of this space. And so those are the tips that I would give you. Is one, understanding why you might feel uncomfortable. Two, finding those other things that would make you comfortable inside of that space. And then three, making that list of the reasons why you deserve to be there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do we have any, oh, another question? How much time do you have, Tammy, for your work? This is the last question that we have.
I'm good. I'm here. Whatever questions. Yep.
My I was wondering, beyond this presentation, are you reachable, like email me with your questions or contact me social media?
Yeah, absolutely. I had this in the last slide, but we ran out of time. So I'm happy to I see you all have signed in, so I'm assuming that your contact information is also being saved, right, Shakia?
Yeah, that is correct.
Amazing. So I'm happy to like have my information shared, my email, my LinkedIn. You all are open to connecting with me and reaching out to me. I am a resource for you all, whether it comes to interviewing tips or networking or just in general. I am happy to help you all in this process.
Thank you, that's awesome, very generous of you. Thank you again
Thank
for
you.
your time
Absolutely.
today. That presentation was excellent.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure it affected our students what they needed to know to move forward in their internship and job search. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
And, I look forward to catching up with you soon. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Hopefully we can do this again and I can come in person.
Oh, yes, you're on the book, don't you worry. I was just thinking about that.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
Alrighty. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.